In the 1980s, John Wimber became one of the founding leaders of the Vineyard, bringing a fresh expression of the Holy Spirit that continues today, with a network of over 2,400 churches worldwide. He also greatly influenced the Catholic charismatic movement, and through Vineyard music, he made an indelible impact on praise and worship that continues to influence worship leaders today. In the 20 years since his death in 1997, his daughter-in-law Christy has extended his legacy. Christy is also breaking new ground on her own by focusing on leadership, helping those with mental health issues, and the training and planting of new churches.
Well, Christy Wimber is joining us now, and thanks for being with us.
Good to be here.
You grew up next door to John.
I did.
What was that like?
Well, I mean, I was so young, so I don't really remember,
You don't
to be
remember?
honest. Well, I remember, like,
You
as
married
I got
into the family, so
when I got
something stuck.
older, then of course I remembered. But you know, remember Sean's a bit older than I am, so it took a good 20 years before I realized.
He's 20 years older than you?
No, Sean is 10 years older than I am, but I think it took before I was
Took
legal.
a while?
Well, before I
Took
was
a while, and you
legal.
had to become of age?
Yes.
He had his eye on you?
He remembers me. This is crazy. He actually remembers me in the Quaker church when I was a baby.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Tell us about that, because I think a lot of people don't understand or don't know that John Wimber came out of the Quaker tradition and initially was a pastor in the Quaker church.
Quaker church. Yeah, I mean, Vineyard roots are Quaker roots. Like, we are very much Quaker. So even if you look at the values within the Vineyard system, they really are, they're all formed within the Quaker church that we are part of. And in the United States, Quaker overseas tends to be a bit different than the Quaker that we came from in California.
A lot of people don't understand that movement and the whole trying to have a be still and know that I am God moment, that quietude is what they call it.
Yeah.
Why was that so important to the Vineyard and to John Wimber?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in the value, even in the Quakers they were known for quaking, right? For God's presence and just being in God's presence.
God's presence would come and they would shake.
And they would shake, and they were called Quakers. And they're even known for where the Vineyard started in Yorba Linda, California, where we were formed. A lot of the Quakers would surround the city and actually pray. I mean, it's very much enriched in the heritage, and that just was a part of how we began, even as a Vineyard movement. It was from the place of prayer, from the place of intimacy, from the place of worship that the Vineyard even began. So it's really Quaker roots.
And that extended into John's ministry, where he didn't like the show. He didn't like the false.
No.
You had to have authenticity. It had to be real.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when he spoke, some really unusual things would start to happen in the audience.
Yeah.
What were some of them?
Some of the manifestations, oh my gosh, I saw so many crazy things. I think the things that I learned the most was, one, his ability to wait on the Holy Spirit. Like, he wasn't afraid, he wasn't intimidated to wait for God to do what God does best. And then when God would show up, it would always be very different. I think more than even the manifestations, what I appreciated was that there would be like lots of spin in the room, and people would be super excited because God, they knew God was going to move something. And John would say, now we're going to take a coffee break. Like, he dialed it down lots of times, because it was like, it's not about the manifestations. It's not about, that crazy. It's about God encountering people. So lots of times I think the things that I remember the most, although some of the crazy manifestations were life-changing in a sense where it was so, kind of bizarre. But it was
all
the
God
people,
encounters are life-changing.
Yeah. But I think God just encountering people in the simplicity of just making that environment, I think John was brilliant at that.
Have we gotten too lost in the modern movement, if you will, in the manifestation, that we're too much emphasizing on that as opposed to the transformation that happens from a God encounter?
Yeah, because it just seems like, people make ministries and they create theologies out of manifestations, haven't it? In the last 20 years, 10 years, especially the last decade. And let's be honest, if God encounters us, but we're not changing, it doesn't matter how much we shake or roll, or if God's not doing a deep work.
I would say it's not new.
It's not new.
I'm reading
It's not new.
theologian from the 17th century in Germany, and he actively attacks what he calls the pneumatics. Pneuma, the Spirit of the God, and that they're
It's not new.
They're kind of crazy, and he wants to return to solid theological principles and groundings for life
Would you
change.
say, though, that, Gordon, it's actually new as in the last decade where the focus is so much on the manifestations, though, that we actually miss some of the things that God's doing because we're looking...
Well, I think it's as old as the word Quaker.
I agree.
That once you get named for the manifestation, you're already...
marked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've established a legacy collection, the John Wimber papers at Regent, where later today you're going to be speaking at Regent. Why did you do that?
Well, one, my mother-in-law wanted to do that, so whatever she said, that's what I obeyed. As a good daughter, I was under orders. And to be honest with you, when we started it, I really didn't have a concept of what was happening. But over this last, now it's been over a decade, where, you know, everything's protected now. It's remarkable, Gordon, because now everything's cared for. People can come and study, and you know, the more that we go here, people will be able to study online. I mean, it's a really wonderful thing for somebody like me to be able to look at something that I know really changed the church and in such a short period of time. And I know, you know, that legacy is protected. And so I'm very grateful for that. And it almost like a sigh of relief, to be honest with you. That's how I feel.
You know it's going to be cared for, and the legacy is going to be there.
Yes, yeah.
You're seeing in your ministry a real dramatic increase, and I think we're seeing it throughout the culture. And this isn't just the United States. I'll add Europe and Asia to it, too. Real dramatic increase in anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, 1 in 4. So it would be 1 in 4 in Europe, 1 in 4 in the States that struggle with mental health. And I think, you know, it's interesting because I was saying earlier, just the whole thing of even John's legacy of healing and kind of what was happening in the culture and learning how to pray for the sick then, it has changed now because culture's changed, hasn't it? And what people are struggling with. I think there's several factors with that. I think one of the things that I think begins to feed more and more things that people are struggling with is all of what's happening in the world, and terrorists and fear and just, you know, all of that stuff. And the enemy loves to play on that. And obviously some things are chemical, but as well, I think as the world begins to change around us, it begins to affect us emotionally as well as spiritually and physically. So. Okay.
Perhaps we all need to take a moment of quietude and be still, know that I am God. And that's meet the Prince of Peace. Amen. If you want to learn more about John Wimber's collection, all you have to do is go to regent.edu/LIB. That's the library. And Christy, thanks for being with us.